What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. So this one's all about the little brother to the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, the standard Galaxy Note 20. So we all know the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra is the phone that packs everything that Samsung has, the absolute best of what they have to offer, and it also comes with a super hefty price tag. Now, Samsung understands that some people may want to buy a Note, but they don't want to pay that $1,300 bill. So that's where the Galaxy Note 20 comes in. It is slightly cheaper, and I use the word slightly very loosely in that sentence because it still starts at $999, but in order for Samsung to get to that price point, they had to make some changes to this phone compared to its bigger brother. So let's talk about what's different on the Galaxy Note 20. The display comes in at 6.7 inches, which is still relatively big. It's not as big as the 6.9 inch display you'll find on the Ultra, but 6.7 is not small by any means. It has a maximum resolution of 1080p, and it's obviously one of the best 1080p panels you can find. If you're not seriously hunting for pixels on the display, you can't really tell that it's at a maximum resolution of 1080p. What's kind of a bummer about this particular display is that it has a maximum refresh rate of 60 Hz, which, like I said, it kind of sucks. Now, I understand that 60 Hz was the standard for most flagship phones like just 2 years ago or even last year on the Note 10, but in 2020, nearly every $1,000 flagship Android phone has come with some form of a high refresh rate display. We can even go back to last year's Pixel 4 that at least launched with a 90 Hz refresh rate, and even this year's $700 OnePlus 8 launches with a 90 Hz refresh rate. So I understand saving money in the display department by cutting the refresh rate, so maybe you shouldn't put 120 Hz, but I feel like the fact that 90 Hz isn't even here kind of sucks. Other things to keep in mind about this particular display: it's flat around the edges, which I actually prefer. I think it looks nicer, I think it fits nicer in the hand, and it's also easier to buy a screen protector for it, obviously. The bezels around the edges are a little bit thicker, which I don't mind either, and the camera cutout on the top of the display is a little bit thicker as well. So overall, not a bad display by any means. Resolution-wise, it's excellent, and quality-wise, it's also excellent. But it's just a bummer to not have at least 90 Hz in the refresh rate department. Now, when you flip the phone over, you'll find a super dope finish, which is actually only available on the regular Note 20 model, and that's this Mystic Green color. Now, while the color and finish look really nice, and honestly, it also feels really nice, the phone is not made of glass on the back. It's actually made of plastic. Now, plastic, when it's used in build for a smartphone, has its pros and cons, just like glass. Some pros of plastic are that if you drop the phone numerous times and it lands on the back, at least you're not going to shatter the plastic no matter how many times you drop it. And if plastic is manufactured properly, like in the case of this phone, it can actually look and feel really nice. Honestly, I feel like a lot of people won't even realize it's plastic unless they are specifically told the back of the phone is made of plastic. Now, like I said, there are cons to plastic. A lot of people associate plastic in a premium smartphone build as being cheap. On a phone like the Pixel 4a, a plastic build makes sense, but on a phone like the Note 20, it may seem a little out of place. Now, it is generally a flagship build, so you are still going to get premium build quality features like wireless charging, reverse wireless charging, and an IP68 water and dust resistance rating. So overall, the build of the phone is nice, the color is super nice, but you're going to be a little split on whether or not you like the plastic build. And of course, this is a Samsung Galaxy Note, so you do have an S Pen on this device as well. Now, if you guys watched our review over the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, you'll know that Samsung managed to drop the latency of the S Pen down to 9 milliseconds, which is incredible. Surprisingly enough, you don't have the same latency drop on the regular Note 20. It's still improved over the Note 10, but as opposed to being dropped down to 9, it's now been dropped down to 26 milliseconds. Honestly, you're not going to notice a difference between either of the phones, and the S Pen is still incredibly awesome, so no worries there. Speaking of hardware, internally, the Galaxy Note 20 is only available in one specification: the Snapdragon 865 Plus processor, paired with 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigabytes of non-expandable storage, and a 4300 milliamp hour battery. So let's talk about each of those real quick. The Snapdragon 865 Plus processor with 8 gigs of RAM is obviously going to give you excellent performance. The 865 Plus is the latest flagship processor available from Qualcomm, and paired with 8 gigs of RAM, the phone is going to be a performance champion. And the Galaxy Note 20 performs very, very well. At this price point, I kind of wish Samsung would have made it 12 gigs of RAM, but 8 gigs of RAM is no shortage of RAM in itself. As far as the battery goes, while it does feature a smaller battery than what you'd find on the Ultra, battery life on the regular Note 20 is just as good, if not slightly better, mainly because you're not pushing a super high resolution or super high refresh rate display. I had the same usage on this device as I did with my Ultra, but I got more screen on time and battery life out of the Galaxy Note 20. So that's nice. Where it starts to get a little interesting is the storage option on this phone. It's 128 gigabytes and it's non-expandable. Now for someone like myself, who doesn't take a lot of photos and videos and mainly relies on a phone for its performance aspect, that may not be the biggest deal. But Samsung has always marketed the Note as the power user's phone, the phone that will practically never run out of storage. It can handle anything you want to do with it. And we're going to talk about them here in a second, but the cameras are very capable on this phone, and it can shoot video in 8K. So chances are, if you're someone who likes to take a lot of photos or take a lot of HD video, you may eat up the storage on this phone pretty quickly. For a phone that's always been marketed as the productivity champion, it's an interesting move by Samsung to make it 128 gigs and especially make it non-expandable. Speaking of the camera system, let's talk about camera performance on the Galaxy Note 20. Now obviously the camera system itself is a lot smaller and it protrudes a lot less than the one you'll find on the Ultra, and the lenses themselves are smaller in overall megapixel numbers. You'll have a 12 megapixel wide angle, a 12 megapixel ultra wide angle, and a 64 megapixel telephoto lens. And as opposed to 50 times space zoom, the regular Note 20 is capable of 30 times space zoom, which I still can't find a shooting scenario for 30 or 50 times space zoom. I think 10 times is just good enough for whatever you want to zoom in on. And at 10 times zoom, the camera still performs really well. And overall, while this camera setup comes with smaller numbers, we all know that higher megapixel count doesn't necessarily mean better photos. The camera system on the Note 20 is just as capable and just as good as the one found on the Note 20 Ultra, and the photos are classic Samsung. They're super saturated and they're really pleasing to look at. They may not be the most accurate in terms of color reproduction or reproducing what your eyes actually see, but they will always produce nice detailed photos that are really pleasing to look at. The camera system does not leave anything to be desired, while there are aspects of this phone that certainly do. All right, so we've talked about everything that's different on the Galaxy Note 20, or let's not even say everything that's different. Let's say the corners that Samsung cut in order to get the phone reduced in price so it can be launched at a more competitive value. But that price is $999. Which I understand is $250 to $300 cheaper than the more premium Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, but $1,000 is still not cheap by any means. So it kind of leaves the Galaxy Note 20 in this really awkward spot. Now, if you were to take just the Note 20 on its own and place it in a vacuum, it's a good phone. There's actually not too many things wrong with this phone. But we as consumers don't purchase phones or use phones in a vacuum. This phone has competition, and the competition is very real. At this price point, I honestly don't think I can recommend it to anyone but who would be considered a super small niche of consumers. This is a phone made for people who absolutely want to have the latest Galaxy Note from Samsung, but don't want to shell out $200 to $300 extra to buy the more premium Note 20 Ultra. That's a very, very small percentage of consumers who want to buy a smartphone. Because if you're someone who just wants a premium Android flagship phone, you could save yourself $100 and buy the OnePlus 8 Pro that comes with the same amount of non-expandable storage as this phone does, but it's a more complete flagship smartphone package. Higher refresh rate display, bigger battery, very similar performance, better software, I know that one's a little debatable, and a very capable camera system. And you still get wireless charging, the IP rating, all the good stuff that comes with a premium Android phone. Now, if this phone launched at a price tag of $700 to maybe $750, then it would be a lot easier to recommend. But even then, it would still be competing with phones that are very capable, like the OnePlus 8, for example. And it would be a lot harder for Samsung to justify $600 more to buy the Note 20 Ultra if this phone launched in the mid $700 price range. So it kind of puts the Note in this really awkward situation where unless you're a super small segment of a phone buyer out there, it's probably not a good fit for you. If you absolutely must have a new Note and money is not really an object for you, you should go for the more complete phone, which is the Ultra. If you're on the market for just a premium Android phone, you have a lot of other excellent options outside of the Note 20. So overall, good phone in a vacuum, but make sure you weigh all your options because at $1,000, you could practically have any smartphone you want. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you hit like and subscribe down below. Please stay safe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.